What do you make of all this SAB talk and the stock rallying 4%? I know at one stage it was up as much as 11%.
Look, we think it's speculation. The news has been around in the market for some time. But the share price, reacting to that rumor, it was an article that was published in a Brazilian online site. But like Julian has pointed out, there's quite a few hurdles that SAB and Anheuser-Busch would have to get through in order for this deal to go through.
Are you pro the deal?
Look, I think it'll be positive for the SAB shareholders. They're talking about $80 billion, which roughly amounts to about 16-17% premium to the current price. I think shareholders will demand a much bigger premium. There's talk about 30 to 40% premium. If that comes through, then it's positive for the shareholders. But by and large, we would hate to see SAB delist from our market. That's the downside.
Absolutely. With regards to what we could see occurring down the line with SAB, if this deal doesn't go through, we know we saw quite a nice surge. Do you think that we could actually see some pressure coming through in the share price? Because the market liking the news today, essentially.
Look, I think you probably could see some pressure, if the speculation is dispelled. But in the longer term, we like SAB. We like the defensive nature of the counter. We like the emerging market exposure, and over the longer term, we'd be holders, buyers and holders of the counter.
Other news coming through: ArcelorMittal, of course, announcing that the deal with, or the acquisition talks with the likes of Imperial Crown Trading have collapsed. We know that yesterday we actually heard the news coming through from ICT. Is this overall bad news for ArcelorMittal?
Well, I think from a shareholder perspective, first of all, ICT came out yesterday to say that the deal was cancelled sometime in August. From a shareholder perspective, I think there was more negatives if the deal had gone through than positives. So, we'd like to see a much cleaner BEE deal come through, and we view it as positive.
And ArcelorMittal is up 2%, in fact.
And you can see that the market probably likes the news.
Yeah.
But Mittal Steel has been oversold, we think, over the last few weeks.
With regards to MTN increasing its stake in Rwanda by 25%, bringing its overall holding to around 80%. What is your view?
Yeah, look, I think MTN is finding it more hard to find acquisitions, going forward. I think they're just perhaps wrapping up the Rwanda acquisition. We think it's positive, but by and large, going forward, MTN should be returning much of that cash flow back to shareholders, and that's the attractiveness of MTN in our view. We like the strong cash flow generation, the new dividend policy, and basically that's the attractiveness of the company.
Do you hold MTN, Suraj?
We do, yes.
Okay. Goldman Sachs putting some price targets out on banks in today's session. ABSA, Nedbank and Standard Bank all sell. Would you agree with that? Do you think that banks have had their run at this point?
Look, we still prefer the South African banks to the offshore banks. We think they're well capitalized, they're more defensive. But in that space, we prefer FirstRand, and we also prefer Standard Bank. We think Standard Bank has been oversold. We also think that they've gone through a bit of a torrid time, but over the longer term, the brand is still strong, got a good presence in Africa, and we think that they should continue to do well.
Looking at the top 40 here, of course, we had SAB second in line, in fact, up 4%. Mondi PLC was up just over 4%. Lonmin gaining over 3% today. BHP recovering quite nicely as well. At the bottom of the top 40, the likes of Implats down 0.5%. Steinhoff shedding around 0.5%. It's really tough to read where markets are going right now because they're not really trading to what we see on a fundamental basis. How does one look to stocks where we can comfortably say they're offering value X what we see on the macroeconomic front?
Just coming back to the market, when we opened this morning, we went straight up in a straight line, and that followed the US market. What happened overnight. There was no real positive news out of the US, but that closed in positive territory. We followed the European markets, that also traded in positive territory. So for most of the day, we were up about 2% up until midday, and then we lost some momentum towards the latter part of the day. But SAB Miller, it traded up, like you say, as much as 11% it was. But closed at around 4%. That was the star performer of the day on the back of that speculation. But I think the market is lacking any positive news, that any lack of negative news is causing this market to go higher. And you don't want to see that really. You're looking for the positive news. There was some positive
in
news.
the form of real economic data that are actually showing
that the
growth.
economies are gaining traction, that growth is coming through. But we're not seeing that. The news out of the Eurozone that the EU has a plan in place to shore up the banks in that region, that was seen in a positive light. You saw the rebound in the European banks, and we followed suit.
ECB, IMF, EU, the Troika, lots of stimulus coming through from the Bank of England.
Markets
Is that good news enough for you?
Yeah, not really. I think markets are just grappling for any positive news, and whatever comes through, they just use it as an excuse to take the market higher.
Suraj, also just touching on the overall commodity space, because I was speaking with Peter Todd-Montalto, and he says there is a chance now that China might have a hard landing.
Yeah.
If that is going to come to fruition, that could mean that our heavily weighted top 40 index is going to also come under pressure, because we predominantly focused on resource stocks.
Absolutely. I think our commodity companies rely on the demand out of the Asian economies, in particular China. And if that has a hard landing, it's going to definitely affect our commodity companies.